going to work? Can I pull this off? And on the other hand, believing and getting up every day and working even harder to make sure that it does happen, precisely because you have those doubts and you don't want to be wrong. You also need the ability to continuously learn, because if you haven't done it before, every next step, every next stage is something that you have to learn that you didn't know before. Now you're going to have to understand corporate finance, because at some point you're going to have a CFO and you're going to have to understand treasury operations and what to do with your overnight cash and whether or not it's better to keep something in one currency or another, right? That's a problem you'll have before long if you have an international business that scales. You'll have to become an expert at human resources, because you'll be hiring someone in a different country with different laws. So you're going to be forced to keep learning, whether you want to or not. So it's best to come into it with just a proactive interest in learning. Yep, I want to learn everything possible about whatever it's going to be that can help the success of my company. And you need to be able to live with these paradoxes, this continual sense of uncertainty, and somehow manage the stress that comes along with that. And then obviously demonstrate the values that we started talking about this morning, like integrity, determination, flexibility, problem solving, and communication. And we'll talk about those other three in more detail next week. So the roles of the CEOs, and assuming that you guys are all co-founders here, CEOs or C-level contributor, is to decide which key people the organization is going to need to grow and develop a plan to get those people into the company. Not try to force people into roles that they don't fit in, and be sensitive to the needs and the capabilities of the people you currently have as you think about what you're going to need 3 to 6 months down the road. And so, how many of you guys are thinking, as you think about scaling, what if things really start to go well? Do you have a clear sense in your mind of where the next couple hires would go, where the extra resources would go, what kind of people they would be, how much you'd have to pay them, where would they be located, how would you personally get involved in recruiting them and training them and bringing on board? How many? It sounds like you're shaking your head. Tell us a little bit about what's next in your mind.
So some people with specialization in particular areas like growth, sales, human resources.
Okay.
And we're working on that. We have make a headcount projection for 2 years, next 2 years, if we achieve some goals, right? Of course, but it looks like we are, with the information we have now, we are putting that in place, and we are already bringing on board people that we cannot pay right now the salary they will deserve, but that they are starting to fit into our company, and we are making a bet. That is the person we want for helping us grow.
So it's tough at this point, because it's hard to talk about product without talking about engineering, or to talk about sales without talking about product. And so sometimes if you try to prioritize one over the other, you start to pull in one direction and now you're deficient over here. Do you all have a clear sense of the levers and the trade-offs? Like, sales suddenly start to accelerate. You hire a salesperson, or your growth engine starts to kick in. What the consequences would that be over here on your engineering team or your operations team, and kind of how that lever will work. So you grow here, and it causes this consequence over there. Have you thought to that next level about, okay, then potentially I would need to do this? Spend any time thinking about that, or having a little model in place, or because that could come about pretty quickly. So it's interesting to think 1-2 steps ahead based on what you know now. So balancing the needs of one side of the organization with the other, when they're all intertangled and when they're all interdependent. When the product, in this sense, you know, is the product, right? The product is selling itself in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
So common mistakes that people made, hiring too far in advance. So hiring more people than you can support right now. But not only that, hiring people that are more advanced than what you need right now. So you think you're gonna need a sales manager, so you hire the sales manager that you think you're gonna need in 6 months because you're confident that you're gonna be there. So what you've got is a manager now for sales that haven't happened yet. And maybe the manager isn't the person that comes in every morning and expects to pick up the phone, that isn't gonna actually make the sales happen.
Absolutely.
So it's always better to hire for what you need right now and keep the bus moving, and then create a path for the people that are doing that now to see who can become the manager from within and be thinking about. That's a lot to think about when you're getting pulled in a million directions too.
We've done that in the past. We had 5 employees and we hired in 1 month 4 new people. The whole culture, everything changed. That was not our company no more. So
Yeah.
we fired 3 of them.
So you're back now to your culture, and you're back to employees that you can afford, but you've arrested your growth, so you're kind of plateaued.
They burnt our investment round. We hired
Got
too
it.
expensive people, too many people at the same time. We didn't have time to give attention to them, to explain really the product. Like we hired a great expensive sales guy who was doing very well at his previous job, but we didn't have enough time to explain to him what is he selling, and he ruined a couple of very big clients for us.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
we just assumed that because of his experience,
Yep.
he will be able to sell without us explaining him what actually does he has to sell.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's a pretty common mistake, and the other piece
Some
is.
some positions you can promote from within. Like for example, if you talk about sales, you can have like SMBs sales and enterprise sales, as in our case. At first we were doing, okay, let's hire enterprise sales people because tickets are higher, blah blah.
Right.
But then it's like it's too difficult to find a person that has the experience, skill sets, and has a culture fit with the culture of your company at your current stage. So, for example, in our case, we decided to go for hiring 3 teams of 3 sales each, and try to find between those 6 one that we can promote to better, to enterprise sales, to more important deals.
Have
we
you
were
had the
also
time to
planning
think
on-
about, you know, how that role differs, or how the compensation should be different, or
Yeah,
what are
of
the
course.
evaluations, okay, and
Yes.
how's that worked out? Has that happened the way you thought it might? Or
No, we're just starting that.
Just trying it down.
Starting. Not the people is not even on board.
Okay.
Also, I think when we started to think about this, our first plan was let's hire a sales VP, like one guy with a terrible experience paying like $75,000 a year. That for Latin America, that's the equal of $150,000 here, maybe or more.
Yeah.
But then we said, what are we doing? Like this is like makes no sense. So let's hire 6 people that we can try to manage ourselves. If a fire happens, it's fine. If they blew some deals, it's fine. And when we have like 9 people or 12 that we cannot manage ourselves, if we validate that this is the way we want to continue growing, let's bring in someone with experience managing a team and more data-driven, maybe. That's our plan right now. We pivoted from hiring first a VP and then the sales team to hiring first a lot of more junior sales team and then bring in someone.
For us, the problem is that we don't have small customers. We're selling to transportation companies, to media agencies, and they're all very large. And if you fuck up with one of them once, it's over.
Could you do some?
Adam, you can return to them like in half a year, like team is changed.
Yeah.
So we can sell
Doesn't
one more
work.
time, like-
Doesn't work. If you destroy like media agencies, no. If you destroy a relationship once, then they
I'm
don't
not
want to talk to
talking
you.
like destroying the relationship. Or
If
people
you
fuck up, like, in
destroy
selling
a
the
relationship. That is hard.
Yeah.
How can you destroy a relationship?
No, if
Maybe he don't close the deal, but destroy the relationship.
it happened in the past.
Well, take a little bit more care about who do you bring on the company, maybe bad.
What did you do? What happened? I'm curious.
They don't have to date them. They just have to. You can say they talk in representation of a consultancy agency or something like that. So
No,
you
but-
don't burn your image if you. But
This is the thing. Like some people you can approach once, and if they will not be interested at that time, then when you call again, they will not talk to you.
And how is it possible for you to scale if you have to do always the sales?
That's the challenge. No, I'm not saying I have to do always the sales, but
that you
Or
need
your
people.
team, I mean your.
it's very challenging to find the right people.
Have you done all the sales up until now?
Not me. My co-founder Louis. He's the sales guy.
Okay.
And how many customers are all over there? What about?
Tens. Like
Right.
lots,
So-
but these are very large sales. In the Netherlands, it's actually enough. Like we looking into possibilities of hiring some accounts managers for returning customers, but it's just hard because if people don't understand your vision and what you're actually doing, then it's hard for them to sell.
Yeah.
Maybe you can divide the sales process into the different stages. Just manage the critical stages yourself.
Yeah, it's very hard, and also people don't want to be speaking with some juniors. Like if you indirect contact with
Just put the
with a
information
marketing
to the
manager
sales.
of McDonald's in the Netherlands, you do not want to speak to your junior.
Yeah, that's what they can do.
It's just challenging. I don't want to bore everyone
No,
with
but
my
I mean-
personal issues.
I mean,
but-
basically what we're seeing is that these are all really real issues that everybody's facing, right? What is the right person to hire right now? Should I hire someone that's a little higher level that I don't actually need yet, can't really afford yet, or should I wait? These are very real concerns, and so the advice, I mean, coming from Reed, is don't hire too quickly and don't hire people before you need them, at a level before you need them. Try to get as much as you can out of the people that can serve the current stage of growth, and then see who can evolve into the next stage of growth before you make the decision of whether you need to bring someone higher in, because fit is important. And people that have been there, that have grown with you, are gonna fit better than somebody that you just hired in from the outside and dropped in because of experience they had. So even though it's tougher and you have to work harder to grow the people, in the end, you need to find people that can help grow sustainably with you. And the second important thing, other than bringing the right people in, is to embody and own the strategy of the company. It doesn't mean that you have to be the only one responsible for it. It just means that you have to communicate it, lead it, represent it, own it, and be that face in front of the people. And clearly, in order to succeed, you should be open to new ideas from everywhere. Which is, what's interesting is why is Silicon Valley probably one of the most strongest advocates for diversity, of every kind of diversity, is because they genuinely believe that diversity leads to a richer set of possible answers, right? That different people with different expectations, different backgrounds, different experiences, different education, different national, cultural, whatever backgrounds, bring them together, you get more perspectives on the same problem, you're gonna get a better answer. So if you genuinely believe that philosophically, and you're not in love with your own answers, then diversity is a benefit. And that's definitely, I think, one of the reasons why this area is pushing so hard for that. Of course, it's also true that they're probably pushing hard for it because they've been criticized so strongly for the lack of it, right? For the lack of gender diversity or things like that. So at some point, if you have to bring in a new CEO in this phase, in this early phase of the company, Reed's thoughts are that you really should look at them not as an outside hire or as an employee, but you're bringing in a new co-founder. So if for whatever reason that would have to happen, now later on, when the company is much larger, further down the road, maybe it is more of a hiring situation from a governance standpoint. But in this stage, or the next stage, the tribe stage, bringing someone in like that would have to be a very, very careful consideration, and almost positioned as a co-founder. He tells the story about how he found the CEO that he hired when he realized that he needed somebody else to grow LinkedIn. That LinkedIn, he thought, was a business-to-business platform with an enterprise sales component, and that's how it started out. But over time, he realized that it was actually a B2C platform based on how people were using it, and that he didn't have any experience at all in running and growing a B2C business. And so they started looking for what kind of a person could they hire, and the first place they looked were the people that were the most active users of LinkedIn. And that's actually how Reed met Chris.
Oh.
Because Chris was one of the first users of LinkedIn, and he was one of the most active users.
Was he one of those scammers who send messages to everyone?
No, I don't think so, but I'll have to let him tell you the story. But because he was on there and he loved it, he invited Reed to come speak at Harvard Business School when he was a student there. And so that relationship goes back that long, and it's because Chris was a big fan of the product and was just using it anyway, and said, hey, I'd really like to meet the guy that's behind this, and so reached out and made an opportunity. Similarly, the guy that Reed hired to run LinkedIn was not someone that he had a personal relationship with, but was someone who, when they looked at who were the most active users of LinkedIn, he was at the top of the list. I mean, very close to the top of the most active users. But he was doing it just because he already found benefit in the product. And it also happened at the same time that he was running the consumer business at Yahoo and was managing 3,000 people and had successfully grown that organization. And so they thought, okay, here's a proven leader who's ready to be a CEO, who has B2C experience, but we also know that he is a big believer in our product because he's been using it for years and all the data supports that, right? So he's a natural evangelist for what we're doing. And so that's like the concept of the fit. So how you build your team out in the first few years has a big impact on the future direction of your company. How you recruit, how you determine what the roles are going to be, how you decide to measure performance, how you identify what the gaps in your team are that you need to fill, and debate about the way that you want to manage and the structure. So since we're at 4 o'clock, I think this is a good place to transition to the exercise that we had talked about doing before. So I'm going to pass out these sheets, and these are also going to be in your drive. If you could just each take one, and then we'll talk about what to do with it. And this will be work on together in your teams. I'm going to keep one. And so what we'd like you to start doing is come back into your teams, and Tuto and I will walk around and talk to each one of you. And we want to come back to the topic of the things that we talked about today. So today we talked about scaling ourselves as a founder, making sure that we're setting the right metrics, values and integrity. And now we're talking about team and looking into the future, 3 months or 6 months, about the needs of your team and what role do you play in that, right? You as the leader, you as the person who's setting the values, you as the person that knows the strategy best and has to be the one to convince people to join your team. And so what I'd like you to do is start taking down thoughts about the team component of your time here in Silicon Valley. So you're going to think back to your team at home. You're going to think about your presence here. You're going to start thinking about what if I set up business here? And what if we start selling here? or we start growing, or whatever strategy you have in mind. Maybe you're just here to raise money and go back to your other market and keep working there. But whatever your particular vision of what's likely to happen, let's start thinking about the needs of your team. And so in each one of these focus areas, one of them should be you as founders. What do you need for yourself? So focus area 1 is founders, right? What do you need? Do you need coaching? Do you need a life coach? Do you need to learn more about finance? Do you need to learn about, I don't know. What's, in terms of your ability to scale yourself and to keep growing in the context of your business, whether it's a personal, situational, emotional, whether it's skills-based or knowledge-based, what are some things that you think it's important that you do for yourself or for your team of founders to be successful in this program? And what are the criteria for the success? Okay? And then in the middle column, write down some thoughts about what are the actions that you believe you should take. And again, we're talking about the finite period of this program. Okay? What are some things that you should do, some milestones that you should set during this program to make sure that you get what you need as founders to make yourself successful? And then indicate where you need help. By who? Who is what kind of help? What kind of person are you looking for? What kind of expert? What is it, a book? Is it, and put some kind of a prioritization down here. By when? Well, we're going to be here together for 6 months. So is it month 1, month 2, month 3? Let's use months in the last column. Okay. So again, what do I need as a founder to be successful for me? What am I going to do about it, and what kind of help do I need to get, and when is the right time in this program to get that help? And then this is going to be a way for us to start communicating about some of the ways that we begin to support you as individuals, whatever those ways are. Okay, we're not going to be able to do it all. We're not going to have every answer or meet every need, but this is your chance to just, write something down for yourself, and we will all do the best we can to support you in those areas of personal need. Okay, so take a few minutes, and maybe 15 minutes, and focus on that one. The second area we're going to talk about, focus area 2, is your current team. And the third area is additions to your team that you might need to make during the program. So your current team is focus area 2, and additions to your team that you might have to make during this program is number 3. And my suggestion would be, because human minds are not actually good at multitasking, think about number 1 first. I'll set a timer for 15 minutes. And when it goes off, we'll switch to number 2. And of course, you can continue this